It's Big Dave, CHGO Bulls, and I am being joined by the one and the only, the man who shot 43% for his career at LaSalle from the three-point line, Mr. Tim Legler. You can follow him on Twitter at LegsESPN. How you feel, Legs?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm getting excited for this Emirates Cup. Now that we know the matchups, man, it's going to be fun. Last year, I think, gave us some incredible moments in games, considering they really are just regular season games early in the year too, but it gives the league a little bit more juice at this time of the year. Last year was the run that those teams had through it, and then I'm looking forward to this. I love some of these first round matchups.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Were you, when it first got announced that they were going to do something like this, like what was your kind of feeling on it for the Emirates Cup?
Super skeptical because I understand, and they needed to do something to address the fact that the regular season importance was being greatly diminished by the number of games that guys were missing, whether it was to injury, load management, taking a longer time to come back from injury than you used to, whatever the case may be. A lot of the regular season matchups we had been looking forward to were not coming to be because of that. And it was affecting the sponsors, the networks, the fans, our job. It took away a lot. And everybody was just kind of saying, you know what? I'll just stick with the NFL and college basketball. I'll catch up with you guys later in the year when everybody's playing. And I thought, you know what? Is this really going to incentivize guys to play harder and to show up and play and, really take this seriously like it matters to win? I was skeptical of that. I didn't think the money was any sort of incentive for what these guys are making, the guys that are going to determine this. So I didn't think it was the money. It was about the pride. I didn't know if it was going to be there or not, but the pride was there. I was impressed right off the bat last year when the Cup started. You could see the difference in intensity in the games. They looked different than an early December game or late November game in years past. And I was impressed, and give them credit. The league got it right, and the players bought in to their credit. And now I think we've got some awesome first-round matchups. 7 red-hot teams. Yeah. And Warriors are the only team struggling a little bit, lost 5 in a row, but they had a great start. But 7 of those teams are 60-11 in their last 71 games. So you're talking about like literally as hot as these teams will be all year heading into this. And that just sets up great basketball.
Yeah. It's like the Atlanta Hawks just out of nowhere just went on a great winning streak and got themselves up in that cup, man. So, yeah, it means something to players with that pride. I know the money means something to those guys, maybe not at like the first, 5 or 6 players on that team.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like guys like 8 through 15 are like, I'll take that money. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to watching it. One team, though, who did not make the tournament is our Chicago Bulls. Not that they did put forth an effort. They won their first game ever this season playing in the Tournament Cup. So, because they didn't win any last year. So they won their first one this year and had an opportunity, just, couldn't get it done against the Celtics to get it in. But, hey, it's the Celtics. What are we talking about? But let me ask you this, man, because the trade that trade time is coming up. December 15th is around the corner, and it feels like the Chicago Bulls are who everybody wants to date. And they have everybody on their roster right now, from a Zack LaVine to a Vooch to Lonzo Ball to even a Patrick Williams. Guys' names keep coming up kind of in those trade talks. What do you feel who's going to be getting looked at a lot on this team? And do you feel all eyes definitely will be on Chicago?
I do. Listen, doesn't it feel like that? It's been like that for the last 2 years. I mean, like everybody on their roster came up at one point or another over the last couple of seasons. And it's because the Bulls are in that strange place in the NBA that I call NBA purgatory, right?
Yes.
They're good enough to field a competitive team most nights, but they're not good enough to really be relevant in terms of the Eastern Conference playoffs or making a run. They're entertaining, but a lot of that has to do with the fact they're very porous defensively. So they're involved in a lot of shootouts. So the games are kind of fun to watch. They're in that weird spot where you start to go, how much longer do we want to stay in this place? So you've got options. If you're the Bulls, you've got options. Do you strip it down and kind of start over, which a lot of franchises go through that. And they have pieces that have talent enough that you can see fitting in other places and maybe being a missing piece for a team that can contend. So that's why the Bulls come up and they're so relevant with these kind of talks. Now, they've got some interesting salary setups though. So, you look at a guy like Zack, for instance, who's a very talented player, but you're talking about taking on $45 million, next year in salary. Like, I don't know what people think that they'd have to give up to match that and what kind of younger pieces the Bulls would want back. And does that set the team back overall that acquires Zack LaVine? Because it's one thing to bring in his offense and think like, hey, man, we could use a talented 2-3 that can get his own shot, it can score. He's been doing it a long time in this league. We can use that, but at what cost? And I think that's the problem with a number of their players. They're interesting pieces. What is it going to take to acquire those guys and the teams that are going after them that are maybe more like lower end playoff teams to middling of the pack playoff teams, or maybe, who knows, even a contender might be looking at these guys. What are you giving up though? Overall, does it set you back because you're losing some of the young guys that you have in the stable? Does it mean that you've lost some defense or athleticism or depth in order to acquire a player like that? And that's what's going to be interesting to see about the Bulls, because listen, clearly they're not a contender. They're a team that's entertaining, and in the Eastern Conference, hey, maybe they're a play-in team, and then it becomes just a roll of the dice. Are you one and done? Yeah. Are you able to win a game or two, and maybe now you slip into a best of 7, and you go take on a team like Boston or the Knicks potentially at the top, or Cleveland, and then it's over in short order anyway. So that's just kind of where they're at.
Yeah, definitely is exactly where we are. We do not want to be in purgatory, which is why we don't mind, teams coming in and shopping in the store, taking anything,
right.
20% off or whatever. We're fine
Definitely.
with it. Let me ask you this about Zack LaVine. Have you ever, it seems very strange to me to watch a guy this skilled and this talented in what he's done, and teams just to completely stay away from him strictly because of a contract. What do you attest that to? Because I've seen players with worse contracts still getting moved and still be talked about and still have no issue finding a new team to get to. I personally think it's Zack who doesn't have like the cachet behind him. Like, he doesn't have that MVP talk behind him, has a couple of all-star games and everything. So he doesn't really have a lot behind him to back up that kind of salary. Do you feel it's the same way with Zack LaVine? Because it just, for me, doesn't seem like it's about the play. It's just strictly about that contract.
I think it's not just a contract. I think you look at him, you look at a guy that throughout his career, he's also had problems with injuries. It's been a part of his story. He's had a few seasons where he, for the most part, was available most of the year, but most of those seasons he has not been. He's also only got 4 games of playoff experience. I mean, so, when you're talking about a guy making that kind of money that can score for sure, and look, there are teams that maybe need a guy, and on some teams, if he went to a contending team, he might even become more of like just a spacer, and you might see this guy take 10 threes a night because he's capable of doing that, and they might not need him to create as much offense. There probably would be some teams interested, but is that worth what I just described? Is that worth $45 million? Is that worth taking on a guy that really does not have any track record of a lot of playoff success? Because to me, that's teams that are in that category. They're looking to get that final piece that maybe think that can help them break through. You're either looking at a guy, you want somebody like younger that fills a very specific need that you have: wing defender, ball handler, a guy that can be more of an isolation player, a big that can pick, dive, slash, protect the rim, like very specific, high-end skill set, and that's the one thing we need. I don't know that you can say that about Zack LaVine. He is a scoring wing. There's a lot of guys that score the ball similar to Zack LaVine in this league as a scoring wing. So he doesn't really differentiate himself in a way that you go, okay, we need this one thing to give our team a chance to break through. And even if you thought that, is it worth it? The price tag, what you give up, and the fact that you don't really know what he's going to do in the postseason because he doesn't have a track record of showing you that.
Yeah, that's real. The other guy that is definitely being talked about is Nikola Vucevic, who is not only having his best season in a Bulls uniform, is having one of the best seasons of his career, especially behind the arc. He's just been absolutely outstanding from there. He's doing everything for the Bulls, and his name is obviously coming up in those trade talks. What team do you see him that he could kind of fit in with? And do you think it would be an issue to where maybe he's somebody contending teams might just want and bring off the bench just to, bolster their bench and bolster their roster?
Yeah, I do, because I look at him, and I think the way a lot of teams view him is super skilled, big, very talented offensive player. He can pass, he can run dribble handoff game, which is a big part of his game, big part of what NBA offenses are now. He can pick and pop and stretch the defense, and he's added like this high level consistency from the 3-point line this year. But I also think people view him as a guy that if he's out there for 35, 36 minutes a night, you're going to be compromised defensively to such an extent that I don't know if people view him as that. If you're looking at a guy that could come in and on an average night, give you 20 minutes off the bench where you could protect him in terms of the matchups you put him out there with and what the personnel of the other team looks like at a given time, and you want to go get him 6-7 minutes against this group where he won't be exposed defensively as much, I think that is a good role for Vucevic. And then he's obviously a guy that if you need to, he can play more than that. Your starting center gets a foul trouble or he's hurt. Obviously, this is the starting center in this league. So now you got a guy that can play 35 minutes and put up big numbers if he has to. But I think the defensive for him is something that teams have always taken into account.
Yeah, that's real. Let me ask you about the Bulls' favorite and a Bulls player that some Bulls fans don't really like, but I think they might mesh well together. And that's Emirates Buzelis and Josh Giddey. I feel like Josh Giddey fits well with a guy like Emirates Buzelis, who's always, trying to run immediately. He's out there on the break, and Giddey is definitely a pass-first kind of guy. So I see how a future could work, for those two. But obviously Bulls fans are very skeptical about the contract that Giddey might command. Let's say that watching them this season, Tim, and you see that potential with them on the floor, do you feel that it might be worth to give Giddey that $25-30 million range just because we know he might be the Steve Nash to the Dirk Nowitzki that might be Emirates Buzelis?
Yeah, look, I think all of that would depend for me on how much the Bulls believe that Buzelis can turn into an elite three-point shooter. Because right now he doesn't have a large enough sample size. I don't necessarily think that he's got perfect shooting mechanics where I look at this guy and go, yeah, it's a matter of time. He's got everything. He just doesn't have enough opportunity. He doesn't gotten enough shots to find rhythm from out there. So that is what, to me, would be the difference. Because if you don't believe that he can get there to where now he's a big-time threat from out there, because we know about his slashing and running. He loves to change ends of the floor. He goes after everything defensively in terms of trying to track guys, get blocks, then turn and sprint the wing and throw the ball ahead to him. He loves that. He loves the weak side slashes off of penetration. He loves cutting along the baseline, trying to catch lobs. He's a great athlete, and he likes to defend. Question is, can you pair up Giddey and Buzelis on the floor at the same time for extended minutes with those kind of shooting limitations in the modern NBA? And I don't know yet what the answer is for Buzelis. They are around him every day. I'm not. I'm seeing a guy 11 minutes a night or whatever he's playing. I liked him a lot coming out of the draft. And I even talked about him draft night on the air, saying I thought, try to find that diamond in the rough sleeper pick. I liked that pick. Yeah. But now I need to see, is that going to come? And he's so young and it's so early. It might be a couple years down the road, but that to me is what the Bulls have to look at. If you're going to pay Giddey that kind of money and you plan on playing those two guys at the same time, is there enough three-point shooting on the floor with what the league looks like now, where you might need 12 threes made on a bad night? Some nights you need 18 just to stay in the game. Is there enough between those two guys? Because obviously that has not been a strength of Josh Giddey.
No, it has not. Not over the years it hasn't been. Is there anybody on this Bulls team that you feel should not be up in a trade discussion? Because we are in purgatory. And it feels like guys just need to go. Like the only guy I look at personally is a guy like Emirates Buzelis because we just drafted him. But is there anybody else you feel like the Bulls should be looking to hold on to for their future?
I don't think the situation they're in, no. I think it's one of those deals where it's end of season sale. You open both doors, let everybody in, give people a discount code. You want to do some early shopping, right? You free gift wrapping, free shipping. Like you do what you have to do to try to see who is really serious about coming and make a trade. I think, look, you just drafted Buzelis. There's no way you could have made a determination on him to this point. He's shown flashes of, I think, what you thought he was coming in. He just hasn't had extended run. And at some point, second half of the year, maybe he gets that, depending on what happens and how competitive they are. And the play-in sort of changes the way you view it now. Like, it used to be like by All-Star break, you kind of knew, like, we're not going to the playoffs. And now the last 2 months of the season, you treat differently. Now you could be 10, 11, 12th in the Eastern Conference, and you're thinking, like, man, we got a chance at the play-in. Like, we got to try to do that. Our fans expect it. So now you kind of coach differently as well. So I don't know when the extended run will come for him, but he would be the one guy probably at the top list. Look, I like some of their players. I mean, I like LaVine. I like Vucevic. I like Patrick Williams. I like Kobe White. I like their players. But at this point, with where they are in a track record of mediocrity in terms of wins and losses, you have to open up your mind to pretty much anything and what's available out there. And your phone, you don't have just one phone on the desk. You got like 8 phones. It's almost like a telethon. You got a telethon going. You got 8 people answering calls 24/7, and that's what you're doing right now. You're just trying to see who's out there, who makes an interesting offer. And you never know when somebody's going to blow your doors off with an offer.
all of that is facts right there, too. One more question for you before you get out of here, man. One of the guys who's on our staff now who does the games with us is Will Perdue. Do you have any memories of going up against a Will Perdue that you can share with us or talk about his game when you got out there and had, some time to play?
Only that Will had for as nice a guy as Will Perdue is, and I like Will a lot, and he and I have known each other a long time. He's kind of nasty on the court, man. Yeah. Like, his elbows would find a way into your head, like, randomly. Maybe because he's so damn big and I'm 6'4", so my head was always at his elbow height. But he was always a dude that I felt like would just catch you with one when you weren't prepared for it. So he had a nasty edge to him, man, that belied how nice of a human being he is.
Let me tell you, it's the same way, sir. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Tim, thank you for joining us, man. It's always a blast and a pleasure to talk to you, man. Thank you for taking time out and coming on our show, bro.
Appreciate you having me.
We all silly like the mayor.